Go ahead and close your eyes if you can. We're going to go ahead and take a nice deep inhale through your nose, filling your lungs all the way to the top. And exhale out the mouth, letting go. We're going to take another deep inhale through your nose, really filling up your lungs this time, all the way to the top. And once you're at the top, hold. And exhale out the mouth, really letting go, letting everything out. When you're ready, gently open up your eyes. Welcome back to Mindful Moves with me, your host, Daniela Yench. Today's topic, I mentioned already in last week's episode that embarrassment, which was last week, and self-trust, this week's episode, go hand in hand. When you are venturing out of your comfort zone and you are experiencing new things, there is a deep level of self-trust that is needed. Now, I want to speak a bit about self-trust in general. Self-trust, a lot of us have a mistrust within ourselves and therefore look externally for that validation. What does this look like? This could look like in your day-to-day, always asking someone or a bunch of people what their opinion is about your lived situation. Let's say you are interviewing at two jobs, you've gotten an offer for both, and instead of sitting with yourself and trying to make that decision, you always outsource your answers and you always outsource your information with other people and other people's opinions. Now, this isn't inherently a bad thing. This can also show up as anytime there's a failure or anytime something goes wrong, you belittle yourself and you make yourself feel bad and you experience guilt and shame. This shows a person, and it shows me, that there's a level of mistrust within yourself. You don't need to rebuild self-trust by always getting it right. You can't always get it right as a human. But what you do need to do, how to build self-trust, is by staying with yourself and not abandoning yourself when it does go wrong. This is the main point of this episode, is that we want to teach the body, the nervous system, you to trust yourself. So what does that look like in the past? Why did we even get to this point? Why are we at this point of not trusting ourselves? This can have a range of different things that could have happened to you. In the past, maybe you were praised for being a people pleaser. Maybe you were praised for always being obedient and for being the responsible one and for always taking everybody's thoughts, opinions, and emotions into consideration whenever you made a move. When you think about that, though, on a logical level, does that seem right? Does it seem right that one person is responsible for everybody around them's feelings and thoughts and opinions? That's one example. Another example could be that somewhere in your past you were taught that your reality was not your reality. You were given this opinion that made you question your own reality. A good example is caretakers. I've spoken to people who don't have the best relationship with their parents anymore, and a lot of the time they'll share that they've explained to their parents as they're older, yes, but you did XYZ. You never listened to me and just bulldozed what I was saying. And the parent will come back to them and say, I never did that. How could you say that? That's so cruel. And this is where the first little bit of mistrust in yourself and your reality is born. Because someone is basically saying, no, your reality is not true. You should be doubting yourself. And we internalize that. So if you've ever had this experience, it might not have been a caretaker. It could have also been a romantic partner, a friend. It could be a teacher. When you are told and you know in your heart that something happened and you believe this reality fully and it actually did happen, and someone comes to you and says, that's not true, you're lying. There is an element of distrust in yourself if you choose to internalize it. But sometimes you're so young, you don't have that choice. It just internalizes. And that's where this mistrust within ourselves is usually born. So that's what it can look like. And that's why it can form. And that's maybe why you ask everybody what they think before you make a move. But I'm here to say that that is not the way forward. I am of the strong opinion that all of us have this deep intuition and this deep knowing, and that you will be the perfect person for the job. You will never have to outsource your power, your questions. Of course, there's a difference in sitting around a table and bouncing ideas off each other, sharing, and I am a big advocate for hearing other people's perspectives. But at the end of the day, if other people's opinions and perspectives are going to dull your voice down and bury your intuition so deep under all these layers, that's when it becomes a problem. If you are able to listen to people's opinions and their emotions and what they feel about your situation, it's totally normal to ask for advice. But if that is your only deciding factor, that's where it might become a bit problematic, because you intrinsically, as I mentioned, underneath all those layers, you know what's best for you. You might not be used to connecting to that part of yourself because of all the layers, but you do know at the deep core of who you are, the only person, and you will hear me say this many times, the only person who knows what's right for you and your life is you. So often we hand our power over and we actually dismiss the responsibility and give it to someone else, because then it's easier to blame someone else too. To say, well, you told me to do that. But you are the decision keeper of your life. It's a gift. It's a beautiful honor to be able to make choices. We have free will as humans, and that is the greatest gift. So if you are feeling like that, if you look at your life, I love saying audit your life. If you feel that you don't have this deep trust within you, because self trust, and I've mentioned this in my confidence episode, self trust and confidence go hand in hand. You can become the most confident person. You can teach yourself to be confident through these next few steps that I'm going to talk through. So, step one of building the self trust up again. I want you to get back into your body and not in your brain. So often we overanalyze every decision we make. Everything in our brain becomes very black or white. If I go this way, my life will look like this. If I go this way, my life will look like that. It's not going to be like that. You do not, as well, need to analyze absolutely everything until it's shredded to the bottom. You are allowed to go within your body and feel how it feels within you. So, this is what I'd urge you for step number one. Go inside your body. How do you feel about certain things? When a decision comes up or a question mark in your life, do you feel uneasy about it? Do you feel you get a tight chest? Do you feel shortness of breath? Does it make you feel uneasy inside? That is a clear indicator of your body trying to speak to you and your nervous system knowing what's good for you. So that's my first piece of advice. Get back into your body, take a moment, hand on your heart. How do I feel about this? Even if you struggle to get into your body, because I know it's not the easiest thing to do, how about just pausing before you speak to anybody else? So maybe before calling your best friend to ask her or him what their advice is, maybe just tapping into silence. I think this is exactly what comes from that pause. For me personally, if I just create a pause, it automatically creates silence. Sometimes the overload of noise is what deters you from making your own decisions. So that's where I would start. Tap into your body, and most importantly, create a silent environment, even if it's for 5 minutes. It does the world of good. Step number two. This is something that I'm very passionate about. Keep small promises to yourself. They can be the smallest acts of love, and you just need to basically teach your nervous system, you know what? Don't expect disappointment every time I do something or make a decision. I'm going to reteach you, and you get to rewire your entire body, your whole brain, all of your behaviors, your mindset. You have a choice in that. And so often we fall victim to thinking that that's just who I am, I can't change it. How you change it is by consistently showing up. You reteach your brain and you say, no, I used to maybe be flaky, and I used to always, I would promise myself I'm going to get up really early and I'm going to go to the gym. And then you never showed up, and your nervous system just learned that you don't keep promises. So keep small promises to yourself. It doesn't matter how small they are. You just need to keep them consistent. So what I like to advise is to do a small promise to yourself. You might have heard me say this before about small promises. It can be as small as saying, whenever I get up in the morning, I'm going to drink a glass of water. Or I promise myself that after I sit at my desk and work, I'm going to do 10 minutes of stretching. The smaller, the better to start. I think we all get this. Sometimes we wake up at 3 in the morning and we think, you know what? I am going to change my whole life as of tomorrow. I'm going to do everything that I've ever dreamt of doing. I'm going to be the healthiest version of myself, or I'm going to start that business I want to start, and I'm going to launch the website by the end of the week. Unrealistic goals are going to just reinforce the idea that you don't follow through. Because if you set the bar so high, you are most likely, if we're honest, not going to get there because you've set an unrealistic standard. So, what about bringing that bar lower? It's not to say that you're dropping your standards, it's to say that you love yourself enough to give yourself an actual achievable goal, something that you will reach because it's small and it's doable. And think about what you're doing in the long run. So often we're seeking this instant gratification. I want to get to the goal, I want to have my dream life, my dream body. But how do you really think you're going to get there? Let's say it was given to you tomorrow. Would you be able to keep that up? Would your habits reflect that? Would you trust yourself enough to show up for yourself if you already had that tomorrow? I'm sorry to say, but usually the answer is no. You need to build a lifestyle, an everyday consistency that reflects the life that you want, because then you will get there and you'll be able to upkeep it. You'll be able to keep it going, not just stop there. So often we get ahead of ourselves. So I really want to say my biggest, if you take anything from this episode, building self-trust is teaching yourself that you can rely on you. And that is small promises. So that's step number 2. Keep your small promises to yourself. Step number 3, stop over explaining or even explaining any of your decisions. So often we are busy collecting evidence. We are thinking about how the best way we can showcase our decision and why it makes sense. And when we tell our friends or our family, I've decided I'm actually going to start the baking business. I'm actually going to sell my famous chocolate cake that you all love so much. Let me tell you why. I think it could work because I am a very passionate person. I think it could work because the business model is tight. I think already you've started listing things where maybe they haven't even asked. Maybe you're over explaining in a way to prove yourself. I would like to remind you that you are allowed to make any decision with absolutely no other reason except for it feels right to you. I don't know if you maybe forgot that along the way. I know I definitely have at times. You are allowed to make any decision. It is your life. You have free will. You do not need to explain yourself. And sometimes we it's learned behavior. We feel we have to prove ourselves. We are pushed to give reasons why, especially by people who doubt us. The only person it needs to make sense to is you. And I'm obviously not talking about unrealistic things. I'm speaking about if something feels right to you and you're following something that has been a deep, deep feeling in you. You don't need to explain that to anybody. You just need to be happy with your decision. And again, a reminder, even if things don't go the way that you wanted them to go, it's a lesson. Stop seeing every setback as a failure and a marker for your value as a human. That's your biggest mistake, is that every time you put yourself out there and something goes wrong, you associate it with you being a bad person or a stupid person or a failure. Cut that. It is your life. You are going to have many times where there's going to be a lesson in it, but it's your mindset that you need to work on. It is not the outside. It's about the fact that you belittle yourself every time you make a small mistake. But if your friend that you love dearly makes a mistake, you would never speak to them the way you speak to yourself. So start there. I feel very strongly about this, that you deserve the love that you give everybody else. Why are you the last person to get it? And maybe you don't even give it to yourself. Self-trust, it's such a deeply linked thing to love of yourself, acceptance of yourself, patience with yourself. If you can do that with other people, maybe you can't do it with other people. Well, then you need to learn both. But you first need to do it with yourself. You need to give yourself the benefit of the doubt. And you need to stick by yourself and your decisions, especially in those moments where things might go wrong. So that's my step number 3. Do not overthink, analyze, or over explain your decisions. You're allowed to make them just because they are yours, and that is all. And so I hope that these three, we're just going to run through them one more time. The first one, remember to get inside your body. Take a moment and create that pause and that silence to reflect. If you're just skipping from one action to the next, you never create that nice little buffer for yourself. Give yourself a moment to think about it. When I say think, I mean feel. Tap into how you feel. Step number 2, if you take anything, again, small promises to yourself. These small promises build so much more than self-trust, but it builds confidence. You come across confident, you feel good about yourself, you feel like you're showing up for yourself. Your nervous system relearns everything with these small promises. And step number 3, stop over explaining your decisions. Make your decisions, let them be for you, and give yourself a little bit of compassion through the process. You're learning too. It's your first time here too. You're learning as you go. So I hope with this episode that you see self-trust as something that you deeply deserve and something that you actually want. And here are the very simple tools to do so. And as always, a reminder, I do have a meditation that links with this episode. So if you're needing a little booster, if you want to drop down, take some deep breaths, and just have a beautiful guided meditation on self-trust, go ahead and listen to it. I'll link it below. And remember, of all episodes, the light that you are constantly seeking outside of yourself is just waiting to be acknowledged within. Thank you for being here. See you next week.